Hello guys, in the last class I told you that we'll be starting with the aromaticity. We will be learning about aromatics, anti-aromatics and non-aromatic compounds. So let's begin with aromaticity today. What exactly is aromaticity? So here aromaticity is a phenomena which is shown by the compounds, and basically these are some properties represented by certain compounds. When all the required properties are present in a compound, the required or the listed properties over here are present in the compound, they make a compound aromatic. So what all these properties, conditions which any compound if fulfill called an aromatic compound, let's figure out. So first is compound must be cyclic and planar. So basically any straight chain compound cannot be aromatic. It has to be cyclic, and even when it is cyclic it has to be planar. So planar and cyclic, this should be a compound. Secondly, next condition is each member of the ring must be sp2 or sp, because you can get the planarity only with the sp2 or sp, or combination it cannot be with sp3. So sp3 structures will be out of the plane, right? So every member of the ring, no matter it is carbon, it is nitrogen, it is anything, any atom, it must be sp2 or sp or the combination of both to become aromatic. And there should be a closed conjugation. Closed conjugation means, we have learned what exactly is conjugation. It is the alternate bonds or alternate pi electrons, which basically are the real cause for resonance. So that is called as closed conjugation. That means in the ring or in the system, the conjugation should be complete. It should not be for the half of the ring and half of the ring is not showing conjugation. That should not be happening. Basically, if I'm talking about any cyclic chain, let's say I have drawn this. I'm talking about benzene over here. So here you can see this is the closed conjugation. That means you have double bond, alternate single bond, alternate double bond, alternate single bond, alternate double bond, single bond. So basically here the conjugation is in the complete molecule. It's not in the half of the ring. So this is called as closed conjugation. Then third important condition is that you should have 4n plus 2 pi electrons. This presence of 4n plus 2 pi electrons is also called as Huckel rule, where n starts from 0, can vary till any number. So basically n can be any number, any whole number. Okay, and the minimum number of electrons what are required, pi electrons which are required for a compound to be aromatic, are 2 pi electrons, because in that case 4n plus 2 pi electrons. So if I'll put n is equal to 0, then the number of pi electrons are gonna be 0 plus 2 pi electrons. So basically 2 pi electrons, right? So this is Huckel's rule. Starting from 2 pi electrons, you can have anything in variation or anything in number to this general formula, 4n plus 2 pi electrons. This is called as Huckel's rule. As I mentioned earlier also, open chain will never be aromatic. So it is a mandatory condition that the compound should be cyclic and planar. Okay, for aromatic we can have any number, 2 pi electron, 6 pi electron, 10 pi electron, 14 pi electron. So basically it should just follow 4n plus 2 pi electrons rule. Now we have understood the aromaticity, and now let's understand what is anti-aromatic compounds. Anti-aromatic compounds, these are also very important compounds. We are going to talk about them. These are extra unstable. So basically their property is, aromatic compounds are extra stable. They have that stability due to the closed conjugation. So all the pi electrons are in conjugation showing resonance, and that's why they have extra stability. Here your molecule is extra unstable. So basically it is highly unstable molecule. The condition is it should be cyclic, it should be planar. So planar and cyclic, the same conditions which are required for a compound to be aromatic, the same set of conditions are also required to be anti-aromatic also. Then again there must be conjugation. The electrons must be in the conjugated form, or in fact it is closed conjugation. Okay, so basically if you talk about the conditions, these three conditions are same as aromatic condition. Then what it is which is making it extra unstable, that is the number of pi electrons present in the molecule. So here when we talk about the aromatic compounds, the number of electrons what are required are 4n plus 2 pi electrons. So this is your general formula for the electrons present in a molecule to be aromatic. But if you're talking about anti-aromatic, the number of electrons which will make the compound anti-aromatic is 4n pi electrons. So basically when you start from n is equal to 1, It will be 4 electrons, 8 electrons, 12, 16. So basically, the multiple of 4, if there are pi electrons, that means the compound is anti-aromatic. Now let's go into details of the aromatic compounds. Aromatic compounds can be of two types. One is benzenoid compounds and another is non-benzenoid. Though we have spoken about this category when we had in the beginning of the organic, we had spoken about the classification of organic compounds. At that time also we had discussed about what are benzenoids and non-benzenoid compounds. So as the name suggests, benzenoid are the compounds which must have at least one benzene ring. So basically their basic composition is made up of benzene. Whereas when you talk about the non-benzenoid compound, non-benzenoid compounds do not contain benzene, no benzene at all, but they will have conjugation, the closed conjugation, all other conditions what are required for a compound to be aromatic. So it is not necessary that aromatic compound should have benzene, but it should have all the three conditions we have discussed. One is cyclic and planar. Then we have spoken about the closed conjugation and 4n plus 2 pi electrons. So these are the important conditions which any compound should fulfill and it will be aromatic compound. So the cycle can be benzene, the cycle can be non-benzene structure also. So let's quickly see the benzenoid examples. The first example what we'll talk but the benzenoid, we have already seen these examples earlier also, so I've just listed down few. So first is naphthalene, where you can see two benzene structures are connected to each other and there is a closed conjugation. So every double bond is in conjugation with the other double bond. So look at this. This is in conjugation with this and this and this and this. So all these double bonds are in closed conjugation and resonance will happen in the whole series or whole, you can say, molecule, and these are made up of benzene. So this is naphthalene. This compound is called as naphthalene. This, where three benzenes are connected, is called as anthracene, and again double bonds are in closed conjugation. So in the whole compound you can see the conjugation happening, not only in the part of a compound. Next is phenanthrene. Again, phenanthrene is similar to anthracene, only the arrangement of the third benzene is a little different. It's not connected sideways, it is connected a little vertically up, and this is called as phenanthrene. Right, now we will see whether they actually follow 4n plus 2 pi condition or not. So here all the for all the carbons, when you talk about here, they are all sp2 hybridized and hence they are gonna be planar, no matter you talk about naphthalene, anthracene or phenanthrene. So this molecule is cyclic, these molecules are cyclic and planar, they have closed conjugation, we have checked this, and now let's see whether the pi electrons fulfill the condition of aromaticity or not. So here we have how many pi electrons? So here we have 1 2 3 4 5 5 pi bonds, so basically 10 pi electrons. Does 10 pi electrons fulfill the condition of 4n plus 2 pi? Let's see. If 4 into 2 plus 2 pi electrons, so yes, if n is equal to 2, then 10 pi electrons will be the thing. So yes, it is following the general formula. Exactly same way, I have 3 plus 2 plus 2, so basically 7 pi bonds. So 14 pi electrons. Does it follow the 4n plus 2 pi rule? Yes, it does. How? Let's see. So if I take 4 into 3 plus 2, so basically when n is equal to 3, then it will fulfill the, then it will be 14 pi electrons which follow this 4n plus 2 pi rule where n is equal to 3. Exactly same case will be here. So again 14 pi electrons, and this follows the 4n plus 2 pi rule. Now let's quickly talk about some non-benzenoid compounds where there is aromaticity but no benzene, right? So here first molecule or first compound which I have taken is cyclopropenyl cation. This compound is called as cyclopropenyl cation. The cyclo is for cyclic chain, propenyl because there is a double bond, and cation because there is a plus charge over here. Does this follow all the rules of aromaticity? Let's figure out. This is sp2 carbon. This is sp2 carbon. And in fact this carbocation is also sp2 hybridized. So yes, all the three are sp2, so it is planar molecule. It has 1 pi electron, so basically 1 pi bond, so basically 2 pi electrons. If there are 2 pi electrons, then it follows the 4n plus 2 pi rule where n is equal to 0. Is it in conjugation with something? Yes, it is in conjugation with plus charge. So when I told you, when I had spoken about different type of conjugations, I told you conjugation happens between pi electrons and plus charge also. So this is one of that condition. So when that will happen, what exactly is going to happen is resonance will happen throughout in the ring and the molecule will be something like this. Now let's see, let me draw it nicely. So this is my cyclic ring, and how the resonance will take place. This is the initial molecule. Now how the change will happen. This plus charge will, let's say, this pi bond will move over here. This plus charge will try to form a pi bond here. So basically this pi bond will move over here or break down heterolytically to create the negative charges on this carbon, and the resultant molecule will be this, right? I can again transfer the pi electrons to the next carbon and can shift the pi bond. So basically pi bond is shifting, and this will be this and this. So I've got three structures. One is this, another is this, and third one is this, where every particular carbon which is involved in this resonance is carrying a positive charge. So basically when you will talk about the resonance hybrid, it will have partial positive charges in all three carbons, and those partial positive charges will be 1/3 of the charge. So basically I can write as plus 1 by 3, plus 1 by 3, and plus 1 by 3 charge on each carbon. And the double bond is also rotating inside the molecule. Sometimes we can also write it as this, and this circle, and the positive charge inside. This positive charge inside represents that the positive charge is being distributed among all the carbons which are present in the molecule, and that plus charge is going to every single carbon. So this rotation or this dot 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 circle shows the double bond is basically moving in and getting shared by all the carbons as well as the plus charge. So that's how we represent it. So aromatic it is because of the 2 pi electrons present here. Now again another molecule, this double bond is in conjugation with this plus charge, and this double bond is in conjugation with this plus charge also. So yes, there is close conjugation. When we will do resonance, what will happen? These plus charges will actually move on each and every carbon, and the double bond will also rotate in the molecule, and hence I represent it as dot 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 and 2 plus charges. 2 plus charges because both of these plus charges are getting distributed in all the carbons. This is called as cyclobutynyl dication. And is it aromatic? Yes, 2 pi electrons it has. Every particular carbon is sp2, and there is a close conjugation, so this will make it aromatic compound. Look at the next one. This one, what it is, you have a double bond and a negative charges over here. These negative charges are basically free electrons, or you can say pi electrons, which are present in the unhybridized p orbital. So hybridization is not changing here. This is also sp2, this is also sp2, this is sp2, and this is sp2. Okay, so all of these are all of the carbons are in the same plane. This is called as cyclobutynyl dianion. Are they in the closed conjugation? Yes, double bond is in conjugation with this negative charge also, and double bond is in conjugation with this negative charge also. Double bond will get distributed among all the carbons, as well as the negative charges will get distributed among all the carbons. Is it following the Huckel's rule? Yes, 2 electrons here, 2 pi electrons here, 2 pi electrons due to this negative charge, and 2 pi electrons due to the double bond. So total 6 pi electrons are present, and hence it follows the Huckel's rule. Now look at this. You have double bond, and a negative charge. This negative charge is nothing else but 2 pi electrons. So basically 6 pi electrons we have. This is called a cyclopentadienyl anion. When you will draw the resonance structures, you will see that the double bond is also getting distributed among all the carbons, and the negative charge is also getting distributed among all the carbons. This molecule will be aromatic. Now again, this is sp2, 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 and the last carbon is also sp2. And how many electrons are present? How many pi electrons are present? There are 6 pi electrons present. Closed conjugation in the molecule, planar molecule, and hence this will be aromatic. This compound is called as tropylium ion. Okay, so this is about few non-benzonide compounds. Let's see some more examples. Now let's look at the next example. Next example is also similar, where we have no benzene. It's a closed cyclic structure where we have 3 double bonds and then 2 positive charges. Everything is in conjugation with each other, and every particular carbon is sp2 hybridized. It is cyclic, planar, closed conjugation. And if we talk about the number of pi electrons, 6 pi electrons in total, making the whole compound aromatic. Exactly same way, look at the 7th compound. In 7th compound we have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 pairs of pi electrons. So basically 10 pi electrons, closed conjugation, cyclic and planar, and this compound is aromatic. So all of these are the examples where we have no benzene, but still the molecule is aromatic because of all the three conditions it is fulfilling, that is cyclic, planar, and closed conjugation. Now we can have the aromatic compounds which are heterocyclic also. We have seen the compounds which are all made up of carbon till now. We have not seen the compound where we have any other member or any other element is present, that is any other element apart from carbon. So here now we will list down some examples where the molecules have the atoms apart from carbon also, and how those compounds are aromatic. So look at the first compound here. We have a benzene kind of structure where one carbon has been replaced by nitrogen. So look at this. Now we have one pi bond here, one pi bond here, one pi bond here. So 3 pi bonds we have, and one lone pair with nitrogen. But mind it, this lone pair and this pi bond are not in conjugation with each other, and hence the pair of electron is not gonna participate in resonance, and hence this will be called as localized lone pair. I had told you what all are the conditions for conjugation. Your double bond must be in conjugation with the lone pair to do the resonance, but here there is no conjugation there. The double bond is directly attached to the atom having a lone pair, so this lone pair is not going to participate in the resonance, and hence we are not going to count it as pi electron. So we have only 6 pi electrons which we have got from 3 pi bonds. So this lone pair of electron will be called as localized lone pair electron. But when you talk about the nitrogen over here, this is still sp2 hybridized. Why? Because nitrogen has 3 bonds like this, and these are in the sp2 hybridized state, whereas the pair of electron which nitrogen has is an unhybridized p orbital. So that is the reason this nitrogen is not sp3, this nitrogen is sp2. So this makes this molecule aromatic. So it is planar also, it has 6 pi electrons also, and closed conjugation also, and this makes this molecule aromatic. Now look at the next compound. Next compound, we have double bond, a single bond, double bond, single bond, and pair of electrons. So now this pair of electron is in the alternate position with respect to the double bond. So this is the part of conjugation, and hence it will participate in the resonance. Right? So this lone pair is not a localized lone pair, this is a delocalized lone pair. What is delocalized lone pair? Delocalized lone pair is the lone pair which will participate in resonance. Now when it will participate in the resonance, I want to find out the hybridization. So hybridization of this nitrogen is automatically sp2 hybridization. Everything is sp2. So here it is making 1, 2, and 3 bonds, and this p orbital, this lone pair is an empty p orbital. sp2 hybridized your nitrogen is, all the carbons are sp2 hybridized, and total number of pi electrons are 6 pi electrons, 4 due to the pi bonds and 1 due to this lone pair. 6 pi electrons make this molecule aromatic. I hope you have understood how the first one's lone pair is localized, whereas the other one's lone pair is delocalized one, and how both of these compounds are aromatic. Let's see a few more examples. Now here there is an important thing. Pyridine is more basic than pyrrole. So what exactly is pyridine? Let's go back to the old slide and see. The first compound which we had spoken about, where it was a benzene kind of structure where one carbon was replaced by nitrogen, this molecule is called as pyridine. Whereas the cyclopentanediol sort of structure where one carbon has been replaced by nitrogen, this compound is called as pyrrole. So you need to know these common names, and you should be able to identify what they are exactly talking about. So when they'll write pyrrole, you should get this molecule in your mind. They may not give you the structure, but just the name. Now they are saying that the pyridine is more basic than the pyrrole. What basically decides the basicity of a molecule? Basicity means easy availability of lone pair. Why lone pair decides the basicity? Because lone pair is the one which will be able to attract the H plus ion. So more easily available your lone pair is to make the bond with H plus, more basic your molecule is gonna be. When I say the lone pair in the pyridine is localized, that means that lone pair is attached to the nitrogen always and will be available whenever it is required to make a bond with H plus. Whereas when you talk about the pyrrole, though it looks like the nitrogen has the pair of electron, but it will participate in the conjugation, it will participate in the resonance, and will go and shift to the carbons. So the availability of this lone pair is very limited. It is not with nitrogen all the time, and hence the availability of this lone pair is lesser as compared to the previous case, and that's the reason why your pyridine is more basic than pyrrole. This is a very, very important point. Very, very important. More your lone pair will be with the nitrogen or the electronegative element. It will remain with it. It will be easier for that lone pair to go and react with H plus or attach with H plus or do the bonding with H plus. More it is traveling in the molecule, lesser availability of that lone pair is, and hence it will not be able to effectively attract H plus toward itself and make a bond, which is an important property of a basic compound. So here, look at the third compound. Third compound is what? Again, cyclopentadienyl kind of structure, where instead of nitrogen, now we have oxygen over here. So now look at this molecule very, very carefully. What exactly is there? We have this kind of structure where we have oxygen, we have alternate double bonds, and then these double bonds are on the alternate position with respect to the lone pairs also. But as we have already discussed in very much detail about the conjugation, when you're talking about the lone pairs, only one lone pair can be in the parallel p orbital with respect to the double bonds, not all. So one lone pair will be in the parallel p orbital, whereas another lone pair will be in the different plane p orbital, and hence only one will be capable of showing the conjugation, another will not be. So even though it has two lone pairs, one will be localized and will always remain with oxygen, whereas one lone pair will participate in the resonance and will roam around in the molecule, causing the resonance, causing the conjugation. So all these atoms are sp2 hybridized, one lone pair is localized and one lone pair is delocalized. So how many total pair of electrons we have, pi electrons we have which will participate in the resonance? 2 here due to this bond, 2 here, and 2 this delocalized lone pair. So total 6 pi electrons which are participating in the resonance. We are not going to count the localized lone pair. These are of no use. We are basically trying to check the conjugation, the electrons which are in closed conjugation to do the resonance, and only those electrons will be considered for the Huckel's rule. So that this all you have to understand. This molecule is called as furan. So it is fulfilling all the three conditions which are required for a compound to be aromatic, and hence this compound is aromatic. Exactly similar structure is with the next compound, where instead of oxygen we have sulfur. Again, sulfur has two pair of electrons. One will be delocalized one and another will be localized one. Hence total number of pi electrons will be 6 pi electrons and the compound will be aromatic. So in this fifth example, let's see what exactly it is. So here we have double bond in alternate position with respect to pi electron. This double bond also in the alternate you can say position with respect to the pi electron, and hence all the pi electrons are in conjugation with each other. So closed conjugation is there. Yes, it is there. Okay, so this pair of electron is going to be a delocalized pair of electrons. So obviously the conjugation will happen throughout in the molecule. This is very much required condition. Second, we have to see whether the molecule is planar or not. This nitrogen is sp2, this carbon is sp2, this carbon is sp2, this carbon is sp2, this carbon is sp2. But look at this carbon, this is sp3 carbon. So when this is sp3 carbon, definitely your system is not planar. Okay, I have done a small mistake over here. I have written this compound is aromatic. Actually, this compound is not aromatic. This is a different compound, and this compound is basically non-aromatic compound. Now, what exactly are the non-aromatic compounds? We will discuss it. We will discuss it soon. This compound is non-aromatic because this is not fulfilling one of the conditions which are required to be aromatic. So anything which is not following the aromatic rules are non-aromatic compounds. Okay, so even though it was following the Huckel's rule, it was following the closed conjugation system, it could not follow the planarity rule, and hence this molecule has become non-aromatic. It is different from anti-aromatic. In case of anti-aromatic, I told you every particular condition is same as aromatic. The only difference is there we require 4n pi electrons. 4n pi electrons. This is what required, and here we are not following 4n pi, but the formula here is still 4n plus 2 pi. So basically every rule for aromatic is getting followed except the planarity rule. So any one rule is away from the aromaticity makes the molecule non-aromatic. So non-aromatic compounds are need not to be cyclic. Any kind of structure can be non-aromatic. Anything which doesn't follow the rule of aromaticity or anti-aromaticity is non-aromatic. Okay. Next, look at the look at the sixth compound. Here what we have double bond in conjugation with plus charge in conjugation with double bond, and double bond further in conjugation with the pi electrons. So total number of pi electrons what we have is 6 pi electrons. This lone pair will be delocalized lone pair because it will participate in the resonance because it is in conjugation with the double bond. Every carbon as well as nitrogen is sp2 hybridized, hence it follows the planarity rule. Whether this compound is aromatic or not, yes, it is. It is aromatic because there is closed conjugation, 6 pi electrons, and it is planar. Now let's quickly go through the anti-aromatic examples also. We have understood what are anti-aromatic compounds, and now we will just quickly brush up. So I told you everything will be same as aromatic except the number of electrons. So here it should be cyclic, planar, closed conjugation, and 4n pi electrons. So here this pi bond is in conjugation with this pi bond. This is close conjugation. Every carbon is sp2 hybridized. Number of pi electrons are 4 pi electrons, hence it is anti-aromatic. Look at this. This pi bond is in conjugation with this negative charge. So resonance throughout in the molecule. It is cyclic, it is planar. Number of electrons are 4 pi electrons, and hence it is anti-aromatic. Exactly same way, look at the third one. I have a pi bond here, pi bond here, pi bond here. All these are in conjugation, and these pi bonds are in conjugation with the negative charge. So basically 8 pi electrons are in conjugation with each other. All the carbons are planar and all are in closed conjugation, but it doesn't follow the 4n plus 2 pi rule, but follow 4n pi electrons rule, and hence this is anti-aromatic. Okay. I'll go to the fifth one first and then I'll come to fourth one. So in case of fifth one, look at it. Again, I have a double bond here in conjugation with double bond, and these double bonds are in conjugation with plus charge. Closed conjugation, planar, and number of pi electrons present are 4 pi electrons, hence this molecule is anti-aromatic. I have taken another example, the fourth one, where I have taken a little different kind of structure. Here this is oxygen attached over here. So I'm gonna do these compounds in much more detail, and there are a lot of examples we're gonna discuss. So if you get any such compound where you have a double bond outside and there is some atom present outside, what do you basically do? You basically shift the electron density towards the more electronegative atom. So we have shifted this pi bond, we have broken the bond towards the more electronegative atom, that is oxygen. So if we'll do so, what will happen is oxygen will get a negative charge, whereas the carbon will get a positive charge, and there is the pi bonds over here. We have to check the aromaticity for the cyclic chain only. So what oxygen is getting, we are least bothered about it. We are just bothered about this cyclic chain. And the cyclic chain's nature will decide whether the compound is aromatic or non-aromatic or anti-aromatic. So here we have double bonds in conjugation with each other and in conjugation with the plus charge also. Total number of pi electrons what we have are 4 pi electrons, right? So planarity is there, closed conjugation is there, but the number of pi electrons are 4 pi electron, and hence makes this molecule anti-aromatic. So anti-aromaticity of this molecule will be decided by the nature of your cyclic chain. And how will you decide it? You will break the pi bond which is present between the cyclic ring and the another atom. You will shift the electron density towards the more electronegative atom, and according to that, whatever you will get in the cycle, you will decide on the basis of that whether the compound is aromatic or anti-aromatic or non-aromatic. Now I'll tell you in detail what is non-aromatic compounds. As I mentioned earlier also, any compound which is not fulfilling even one condition of aromaticity is non-aromatic. And non-aromatic compounds can be of any type, can be non-planar, can be straight chains, can be non-cyclic chains. So any condition which is there for aromaticity is not getting fulfilled will make the compound non-aromatic. In fact, which is not fulfilling for anti-aromatic compounds also is basically put the molecule into the third category, that is non-aromatic compounds. So let's see some examples over here. The first example which I have taken is this cyclic chain with a double bond. Here you see this carbon is sp2, this carbon is sp2, but the third carbon is sp3. It is cyclic. It doesn't have conjugation with any other thing. And secondly, the carbon is sp3, hence no conjugation. The number of pi electrons are, even though number of pi electrons are 2 pi electrons, and it is following the Huckel's rule of 4n plus 2 pi electron thing, but still this molecule will be non-aromatic because there is no conjugation, no planarity. Exactly same way, look at the second compound. The carbon here present at the bottom is sp3, hence it is not planar. Even though the number of electrons are the same as what is required for a compound to be aromatic, this sp3 carbon will make this non-aromatic. Look at the third one. In case of third one, first of all, we have a double bond here in conjugation with the radical, but this is single electron, right? So total number of pi electrons what we have is 3 pi electrons, hence it is not following the aromaticity rule. The molecule becomes non-aromatic. Now again the last one, look at the fourth one. Here also the same condition, you have double bonds which are alternate to each other, and then the fifth carbon is sp3, makes it non-planar and hence non-aromatic. Okay, even though it is following the 4 pi electron rule or 4n pi electron, we still cannot call it anti-aromatic, because for anti-aromatic your molecule should be planar, and this is not planar. So here we have understood the details of aromatic, non-aromatic and anti-aromatic compounds. We will go in a little more detail about few more compounds, and the compounds like azulene, what is aromaticity over there, how to decide whether a compound is aromatic or not in those kind of cases, which are little trickier molecules, in the next class. Here, this is just a basic introduction of aromaticity, non-aromaticity and anti-aromaticity. Next class, we'll go a little more deeper and we'll see what kind of different questions can be asked from this part, and what are different molecules they can give you to figure out their aromaticity or anti-aromaticity, or I mean to determine what kind of nature this a particular molecule exhibit. So aromaticity we'll finish off in the next class by covering up the type of questions can be asked from there, and the little trickier questions, little complicated compounds, and getting into detail of it and figuring out their nature in terms of aromatic, non-aromatic and anti-aromatic. Hello guys, in the last class we had discussed about the aromatic compounds, anti-aromatic compounds and non-aromatic compounds. Now today we are going in further more details. We are going to see little more structures of different type of compounds and how to figure out whether these are aromatic or not, little complicated ones. Okay, so today, so the first topic which we are going to start is polycyclic aromatic compounds. So as the name suggests, polycyclic, what does the polycyclic means? That means there are multiple cycles are there, and if multiple cyclic structures are there, how to identify whether these are aromatic, non-aromatic or anti-aromatic. So first we'll talk about polycyclic aromatic compounds. Basically it's well defined here itself that it is an aromatic compound. There are two kind of polycyclic structures we have. One is fused structure and another is isolated structure. So first understand what is fused structure and what is isolated structure. When we talk about the fused structure, fused means when the rings are adjoined with each other completely. I mean, they are sharing the common wall. So the compounds like bicyclo, tricyclo, that kind of structures are called as fused structures. So basically the cycles are not connected with a single bond. Basically cycles are attached to each other, and that is your fused structure. Whereas the isolated ones is this type where you have two cycles or more than two cycles connected through the bonds. Now here, when we are talking about these fused cycles, we basically look out for total number of pi electrons and the other conditions like planarity or conjugation in the whole system. All these three conditions we will be checking for the whole compound. Okay, and if all the three matches, then the system will be considered as aromatic. So here individually rings do not play their role. It is like the whole molecule will be judged at once for the aromaticity. So here if you look at this compound, in this compound, this is your biphenyl structure. So here we will count the total number of pi electrons. Total number of pi electrons are 10 pi electrons, which follow the Huckel rule. Then we have all the carbons as sp2, so hence planarity is there. And then if I talk about basically conjugation, so all the double bonds are in conjugation, so whole system is conjugated. So when I say aromatic, we will be talking about the whole molecule, all the checks we have to do, and then the compound will be called as aromatic. Whereas in isolated, individual rings will be checked for aromaticity. Here it's not like that the whole system is aromatic. Here individual rings are aromatic. So here I can see two benzene rings have been attached with each other through a bond. So if this ring is aromatic, we can't say the whole molecule is aromatic. Individually ring we'll be talking, we'll not be talking about the whole system at once. Okay, so individual rings will be considered for aromaticity. Here this could have been the system where you had a benzene and then it was connected to, let's say, a butane, or let's say this kind of system. So this is your aromatic structure and this one is your anti-aromatic structure. So here we are not talking about the whole molecule, we will be talking about individual rings and their status. So this will be aromatic, this will be anti-aromatic, and that's how you will be defining. So here whole molecule you cannot tell whether it's aromatic or not. Similarly, these are the examples. We have naphthalene. We had spoken about naphthalene earlier. We have spoken about the anthracene, phenanthrene, everything earlier. And these are the structures for these. These are fused rings. We will be checking the total number of pi electrons, planarity, and conjugation. And then we will decide whether the molecule is aromatic or not. Here in this case, the whole molecule will become aromatic, though there are three different rings which are attached to each other. So these are isolated, you can say isolated polycyclic compounds. So here you have three rings here. All the three are benzene, all the three are aromatic, and then this compound can be called as aromatic because individually all the three rings are aromatic. Now here, even if one ring becomes anti-aromatic, then the whole system will become unstable. So we can't say the system is aromatic. Assume I had two benzene things. It's like this. Two benzene. My bad, my drawing is really poor. Okay, and then it is connected to, let's suppose, an anti-aromatic system here. So here we can't say that the whole system is aromatic. This ring and this ring is individually aromatic, but this is anti-aromatic. And as soon as the anti-aromatic compound will get attached to aromatics one, it will basically unstabilize the whole system itself. Okay, so instability will increase in the molecule, or you can say instability will get introduced in the molecule due to this anti-aromatic ring. So nobody will ever ask you for the isolated systems to tell whether the compound is aromatic or non-aromatic. They will be talking about the individual ring only. Okay, now let's take some examples where we have fused rings which are not benzenes and how to identify whether they are aromatic or non-aromatic. Let me just show you. So now let's talk about this azulene. Azulene is again one polycyclic compound where the aromaticity exists. How will we check the aromaticity of this? Again, we will check all the three rules, whether the cycle is, whether the compound is cyclic and planar or not. Closed conjugation is there or not. Closed conjugation. And then following the Huckel rule or not. So all these conditions we have to check, and let's start checking all these conditions. Uh, Obviously the compound looks cyclic, it is cyclic, okay, and planar because every single carbon is sp2 hybridized. Close conjugation, all the double bonds are on the alternate position with respect to each other. Huckel rule, the total number of pi bonds are 5 and hence giving 10 pi electrons, and definitely this is aromatic. One more important thing about this azulene is we had seen, though all these are sp2 hybridized carbons and there should not be any dipole moment, but then again in this compound there was some dipole moment was observed because of the electron transfer from one ring to another, or you can say because of the conjugation, electrons are shifting from one ring to another. Pi electrons are moving from one ring to another and rotating in the whole ring throughout. This molecule tends to show the dipole moment. Dipole moment was least expected in this case because all the carbons are sp2, all have the same electronegativity, but just because of the resonance and the movement of electrons, of pi electrons or pi bonds from one place to another, there was a small amount of dipole moment observed. So what kind of observation it was? That the electrons are shifting from the bigger ring to the smaller ring like this, and then again the electron transfer is happening, this will happen like this, and so on. So basically it's just a conjugation, just a resonance, but this resonance is bringing the dipole moment in the molecule also. Apart from that, this molecule is a waxy blue solid, and as I mentioned, a special characteristic of this is, though it looks like it should not have any kind of dipole moment because all the carbons are of same electronegativity, but in observation the dipole moment is observed in this molecule. Now let's talk about this question. In this question we have, this is a previous year JE question. So in this, what we have is this ring is given and now we have to do the hydrogenation. So we have 4 different rings where we can do hydrogenation. Let's say this is A, this is B, this is C, and this is D. Now if you look at this whole structure, this ring is aromatic, this is this ring, all these are fused rings with each other. This is your anti-aromatic. Okay, so here also this is anti-aromatic, this is also anti-aromatic, and all the benzenes are aromatic ones. So this benzene one is aromatic, this is also aromatic, and this is also aromatic. So now when hydrogenation has to happen, there are four positions as I mentioned, A, B, C, and D. If we do hydrogenation on A, B, or C in all the three cases, sorry, not A, B, C, A, B, or D, all the three rings are equivalent, or all the three positions are equivalent position. Basically, it won't make any difference if I hydrogenate A, or if I hydrogenate B, or if I hydrogenate D. And C, which is the middle ring, is a different one. So basically, if there are two ways of hydrogenation, one is when I hydrogenate either of these three positions, or I hydrogenate the C position. So let's see what happens when we hydrogenate either A or B or D. Let me hydrogenate ring A. Okay, three times hydrogen has been given. Okay, so three alkenes or three double bonds will break. So this is how this will become cyclohexane. Then we have benzene in the center. This will remain as it is. Then there is this. This will also remain as it is. And then I have this. This one also remain as it is. Correct? So basically this part of the ring has got hydrogenated, whereas remaining this part is still as it is. Here again what we can see, let's see the status of the rings. This is your aromatic ring, this is your anti-aromatic one, this is aromatic, this is anti-aromatic, and this is aromatic. So basically alternate aromatic, anti-aromatic, aromatic, anti-aromatic rings are there in this fused structure. Now if I hydrogenate it on C, then what will I get? I will get this. All of you please look at it very carefully. This is what I'm gonna get, and now we will see the status of the rings. Okay, so here this is aromatic ring, this is aromatic, this is aromatic, this is obviously non-aromatic, this is also non-aromatic, this is also non-aromatic, and this is also non-aromatic. So basically I have four non-aromatic rings and three aromatic ones. So now if I compare the stability of the molecule, when you talk about this molecule, this has two non-aromatic structures, and then anti-aromatic, aromatic, anti-aromatic. So anti-aromatic structures decreases the stability of the molecule. Right? So basically when I am hydrogenating A or B or D, I will still have some structures which will have some anti-aromatic character, whereas if I'll hydrogenate the C part in the center, the anti-aromatic factors or anti-aromatic structures will be gone. Instead they will get converted into non-aromatic. So overall chain will have either aromatic chains, or will have non-aromatic ones. So basically it will have combination of aromatic and non-aromatic, but no anti-aromatic, anything which could bring the stability down, that is not there in the structure, and hence this structure is much stable than this one. So when somebody will ask us that which part of this molecule should get hydrogenated when 3 hydrogens with nickel is given, C ring should get hydrogenated. Why C ring? Because eventually any reaction goes for the stability, further stability. So 3 hydrogens when getting added to the structure, it should bring the stability in the molecule. And out of these two structures, let's say structure 1 and structure 2 seems to be more stable, and hence the reaction will go in this direction. This is a previous year advanced question, but the logic was very simple, just to check which is more stable, which structure seems to be more stable after hydrogenation, and the one which doesn't have anti-aromatic character will be better stable. So this is something which we need to understand. This kind of questions you can get in your exams, in your any competitive exam also. So this is what the logic you should be applying. Now let's talk about the next set of compounds. What we have for the aromatic structures is N-annuline. N-annuline are the compounds which have general formula of CnHn, and the number of pi electrons they have is equal to N. So N must be greater than 10. So anything less than 10 pi electrons will not be considered as annuline. So these are the common names also. We call them 10-annuline. That means the molecular formula is C10H10. Here you have this is also N, and the number of pi electrons are also N. So number of pi electrons also are 10 over here. How the structure will look like? Structure will look like this. Look at this. This is two cyclic rings fuse to each other, and that's how the structure would be. Okay, now we have to figure out whether these compounds are aromatic or non-aromatic. Though it looks like all the carbons are sp2 hybridized, all are in the cyclic structure, planar structure, and moreover all of these have 10 pi electrons, which follows the Huckel rule also. But this molecule is not gonna be aromatic. Reason behind that is we are looking at the 2D picture of it and saying this compound is planar. But if you actually look at the hydrogens present over here, which are on this carbon and on this carbon, I have shown these hydrogens. These hydrogens, which are internal hydrogens, are very close to each other, and there is a repulsion between these hydrogens, and due to their repulsion these go out of the plane. Okay, and they make the whole structure non-planar. Basically these two hydrogens come out of the plane, and hence the molecule loses the planarity and also loses the aromaticity. So even though theoretically it looks like it is aromatic, but this is not aromatic due to the loss of plane or loss of planarity due to the repulsion between hydrogen and hydrogen. Now look at the next type of aniline. We have 14 aniline. That means the formula will be C14H14. Number of pi electrons will be 14. And look at the molecule structure. I think I missed one double bond over here. Here is a double bond. So this is the structure of 14 aniline, and this is aromatic. There is no hydrogen repulsion over here. So it has planarity also, cyclic also, conjugation also, and the number of electrons are following the Huckel rule also. Exactly same way we have 18 aniline. The formula is C18H18. Number of pi electrons are also 18. Here also there are no internal repulsions, make this compound aromatic. So now we have seen the aromatic structures, anti-aromatic structures, non-aromatic structures, cyclic structures which are fused, polycyclic structures which are fused, and non-fused structures, basically isolated ones, and aniline. So all kind of compounds we have seen, and we have understand how to figure out their properties in terms of aromatic, non-aromatic, and anti-aromatic. Here I have listed down some properties for comparison of aromatic, anti-aromatic, and non-aromatic compounds. We should know what is the difference between all the three structures. So all the three structures have different properties. Aromatic, anti-aromatic properties are very similar. So both are cyclic and planar. For both, the molecule should be cyclic and planar. As I mentioned, for non-aromatic, your structure can be of any type: cyclic, planar, acyclic, non-planar. Hybridization here in case of aromatic and anti-aromatic is required as sp2 or sp, so that they can be planar. Whereas as I mentioned, for non-aromatic ones, planarity is not even a question. Okay, so even if the molecule is non-planar, acyclic, straight chain structure, it will be considered as non-aromatic. So any kind of hybridization would do for a compound to be non-aromatic. Number of pi electrons, 4n plus 2 pi for aromatic, 4n pi for anti-aromatic, and any number for non-aromatic. You talk about the stability. Aromatic ones are very stable, anti-aromatics are unstable, and non-aromatics are moderately stable. So this is about the properties of or the summary of aromatic, anti-aromatic, and non-aromatic. Now I'll give you some questions. You will quickly find out their nature in terms of aromatic and non-aromatic, anti-aromatic, and then I'll compare the stabilities, try them out, and let's discuss their answers then. These are some questions. You try it on your own, figure out whether these are aromatic or anti-aromatic, and then we will discuss. Okay, so now let's quickly discuss. Let's talk about the first compound. The first compound is a cyclo compound with a double bond and then oxygen over here. I think I have missed a double bond here. My bad. So please correct it. It is my mistake. Okay, this is the compound. And now if we have to figure out the nature of the compound, for such compound especially, I told you earlier also that what we do is we move there is a double bond between the cyclic ring and the oxygen, and only for cyclic ring we have to check whether this is aromatic or not. So what do? We move the electron density towards the electronegative atom. So electronegative atom will get the electron density and the molecule will become like this. Now this is what this cycle is nothing else but cyclopropenyl cation, right? And this is aromatic. Now go to the next one. The same procedure we will apply. So the molecule will be like this, plus here oxygen and minus here. This is forming what? Anti-aromatic compound. Only 4 pi electrons are there, so this is anti-aromatic. Let's do the same thing over here. And this is how the molecule is. 6 pi electrons here. sp2 hybridized, cyclic and planar. So this is gonna be aromatic. Now in the next one, again, we will follow the same procedure, and this will be this plus N, H and minus. So movement of electron will happen this way. Again, this cyclic ring is an anti-aromatic cyclic ring. Okay. Now here we have a cyclic chain, double bond with CH2. Here the electron density will move towards the cyclic ring. This is the observation. So always whenever you have an open chain system and the closed chain system, the electron transfer will happen from this double bond to the ring structure rather than the open carbon chain. Okay. So here the molecule would be like this. So this has become what now? This has become an aromatic ring. So this is aromatic. Next, here, now you have what? Two cyclic chains you have. Here the arrangement happens in such a way. So basically here also the double bond will split, and then only you can tell whether the compound is aromatic or non-aromatic by individually checking the basically the stability of the cyclic chains or the nature of the cyclic chain. So here basically double bond try to rotate and break itself, and when it breaks the heterolytic breakage happens, and when the heterolytic breakage will happen, it will try to assign negative and positive charges on both the sides, and then whichever side is giving you more stability, that's how the bond split will happen. So here two possibilities are there. One possibility is the double bond shifts over here and forms this negative and this as positive. See, both possibilities are there. In both the cases, this system and this system will become anti-aromatic. So though this is possible, but it won't happen this way. Instead, the bond split will happen other way around. Other way around, as in the bond split will happen like this. So this will become your cation, and this will become your anion. So it will be this and minus. This system is aromatic. This system is also aromatic. Hence the whole system has become aromatic. So it will not go for the split like this. It will go for the split like this. Same as the thing we had done over here also. In this compound also, it could have broken in the other way, but in that case, this ring would have become anti-aromatic. That is the reason why this double bond is splitting in the direction of the cyclic ring, or the electron density is going in the direction of the cyclic ring, so that it can become a stable compound. It can become an aromatic structure. Now here, look at it. What's happening here? When the bond split will happen, both the rings are symmetric. So one will get positive, one will get negative charge. One positive, one negative. One will be aromatic, one will be anti-aromatic, and another will be aromatic. So overall the system will be non-aromatic. Next compound we have is this. Now how the bond split will happen? If it will happen this way, this will gain a positive charge and this will gain a negative charge, right? So in this case, one ring will be your aromatic one, and this one will be anti-aromatic. Exactly same way, if the split is happening other way around, then the other ring will become anti-aromatic, and I mean this ring will become anti-aromatic, and this one will become aromatic. So in either case, one ring is going to be aromatic, another is going to be anti-aromatic. Overall molecule is non-aromatic. Okay. Now, look at the last one here. Again, the bond split can happen in different ways. It will split this way. If it will split this way, this will be aromatic. Basically, here you'll get a negative charge. Here you'll get a positive charge. This will be aromatic, and another one is also aromatic. So overall system will become aromatic. So this is how you have to judge and figure out how bond split will happen. So the questions, what kind of questions will be asked from such kind of compounds from 6 to 9, that how should the double bond break and what should be the species formed. So here you will decide the bond splitting on the basis of what kind of product you are getting after splitting of the bond, whether it's aromatic, anti-aromatic, non-aromatic, what kind of structure you are getting, and accordingly you will split the bond. So now next question what we have is compare the stabilities of the RS of these compounds given. So basically this compound is RS of this compound and this compound is RS of this compound. So these are two RS of one molecule has been given. This is RS1 and this is RS2. This is also RS1 and this is RS2. So we have to compare which RS is more stable. As I told you in resonance, not all the resonating structures have the same stability. That varies. Here we have two structures, RS1 and RS2. I have to compare their stabilities. RS1, I'm not splitting the bond of the, splitting the pi bond over here because I'm not checking the aromaticity over here. I'm just checking whether this is stable or not. So no charge separation, no charge separation, and conjugation is there. So this is one RS. Look at the another RS where the bond split has already happened. This carbon has got plus charge and this carbon has got negative charge. The charge separation is there, but look at this cyclic ring. This cyclic ring has become anti-aromatic, which will make the molecule unstable. Here there is no anti-aromaticity because we have not broken this double bond, and unless there is a broken bond, we cannot tell, or unless this carbon breaks its pi bond with the next carbon present, we cannot tell the aromaticity or anti-aromaticity. So here we will not decide it on the basis of anti-aromaticity, but the other rules what are there to compare the resonating structures. But in this case, in the second case, the bond is already broken, you have charges. Now you can individually check for the ring also whether it is stable or not, and here ring is not stable due to the anti-aromaticity. Exactly same thing is happening over here. So here you have the structure where the conjugation is there, double bonds are there, no charge separation is there, whereas the another resonating structure what we have is this carbon has got a positive charge and this carbon has got a negative charge. So now in this compound, this cyclic ring is aromatic. So if somebody asks me which resonating structure is stable in the second case, resonating structure 2 is more stable than resonating structure 1 because of the aromaticity it is gaining after breaking the double bond, whereas in the previous case, in the first case, your RS1 is more stable than the RS2. Reason being, after breaking the double bond, it is gaining the anti-aromaticity. So this is how you have to decide and compare if they ask you such kind of questions. Now next we'll talk about the resonance energy. We will talk about resonance energy, and here we are done with the aromaticity also. The whole topic is done, and in next class we'll be talking about acidic strength, basic strength of the molecules, using all these concepts what we have learned. So now let's understand the resonance energy. Resonance energy, we have already spoken about it a little bit earlier when we were talking about resonance. And resonance energy is what? It is the energy which is lost in the process of resonance. So basically the energy which is expelled out of the molecule when the resonance is taking place, that loss of energy is called as, the energy which is lost is called as resonance energy, which basically brings a stability in the molecule. So more resonance energy will be lost, more will be the stability. Okay, so resonance energy, if it is resonance energy, as I mentioned, it is the lost energy. More energy will be lost out or will be released by the molecule, more will be the stability. So now this resonance energy is also associated with the energy of hydrogenation, or you can say heat of hydrogenation, which we have already learned earlier how to calculate it. So let's understand the data of resonance energy, or you can say let's understand the resonance energy on the basis of heat of hydrogenation. So I have taken an example over here. This is my cyclohexene. If I hydrogenate it, it will become cyclohexane, and the heat of hydrogenation which will be released in this process will be minus 28 kilocalories. This is the experimentally observed value. So this is not something which we are talking about hypothetically. This is actually the observed value. Now next compound what we have taken is cyclohexane diene. So here it has it could be of different types. Here the double bond is at a distance, or the double bond could be in a little different way also, like this also. So it could be either way. So if we are doing the hydrogenation over here, if we'll do hydrogenation, the heat of hydrogenation, the energy which is released while the hydrogenation will be 2 into 28.5 kilocalories, because one pi bond got hydrogenated and this much energy was this is 28 kilocalories I have written approximately, it's actually 28.5 kilocalories. So this much energy was released. So when there are two pi bonds, to hydrogenate, the energy which got released after hydrogenation was 2 into minus 28.5 kilocalories. This is also experimentally observed value, not the hypothetical value. So now if this first molecule and the second molecule is exactly going by this calculation, that the one pi bond when becomes an alkane, or when the hydrogenation of one pi bond happens, it releases 28.5 kilocalorie of energy. Then let's try for the cyclohextriene also. So this compound is if I talk about this compound seems like it is benzene, but if you remember when I was talking about the resonance, I told you that resonance, these are the imaginary compounds, these are the imaginary ones. This is not the true picture of the benzene. True structure is the hybrid, is basically this is your true structure of benzene. This is You can also call it as, if it would have existed, it would have called as cyclohextriene. I mean, cyclohex 1, 3, 5 triene. This would be the name of this molecule. So this is an imaginary structure, which we also used to say that this is benzene, because this is one of the resonating structure of the benzene. Actual structure of the benzene is this. So this is an imaginary benzene structure. If we hydrogenate it, what we expect it to be, that there are 3 pi bonds, and when the hydrogenation will happen, heat of hydrogenation must be equal to 3 into minus 28.5 kilocalories. That is equal to 85.5 kilocalories. This is not observed value. This is the calculated on the basis of the previous values what we have spoken about. So I have told you when we had hydrogenated 1 pi bond, the value was minus 28.5 kilocalories. 2 double bonds, and it is minus 28.5 into 2 kilocalories. So if there are 3 pi bonds, then it must be 3 into minus 28.5 kilocalories of the energy which is released while hydrogenation. So heat of hydrogenation must be equal to this. But is it the actual value for benzene? This is an imaginary compound, as I mentioned. This is not the true molecule. So if it would be true molecule, then the value should have been this. But what is the true molecule of benzene? This hybrid is the true molecule of benzene. And what exactly is the value of heat of hydrogenation of benzene? Let's see. This is my benzene, and if I hydrogenate it thrice, all the pi bonds will break. Basically, it will lose its pi bond character and it will become cyclohexane. But the heat of hydrogenation released is minus 49.5 kilocalories, which is way lesser than what we expected it to be. So basically, the difference between the expected value and the observed value is the resonance energy. So basically, the difference in the heat of hydrogenation between the real structure and the imaginary structure is called as resonance energy. So basically, if you see, this is 36 kilocalories energy, this is minus 49.5, earlier it was minus 85.5. So here in this case there is more loss of energy, 36 kilocalories more are lost. Okay, so minus 49.5 is a higher value as compared to minus 85.5. All of us know that the negative means it's a higher value. So this means more energy is lost when the molecule structure is this, which is the benzene structure. So basically, the energy which is additionally lost is lost in the process of resonance. Difference between the major contributors, heat of hydrogenation, major contributor was this structure. This is my resonating structure, whatever the heat of hydrogenation we have got for this, and the real hybrid. There is a difference between the energy lost or you can say heat of hydrogenation. So whatever the extra energy loss has happened in the real hybrid, that is because of resonance, and that energy is called as resonance energy. So here 36 kilocalories energy is lost more as compared to the expected one, and that is because of the resonance, and which makes this molecule more stable. And that is why this is the real structure, not the other one. Other one is the imaginary structure. So we can also write resonance energy of the compound is the difference of the heat of hydrogenation between its real hybrid and its major contributor. So major contributor will lose the lesser amount of energy, the actual real hybrid will lose more amount of energy, and the difference between them will be called as resonance energy. Okay, there is one more thing which which I have told you earlier, that is heat of hydrogenation. Heat of hydrogenation is inversely proportional to stability of alkenes. So more stable your alkene will be, lesser will be the heat of hydrogenation. Less stable your alkene will be, more will be heat of hydrogenation. So if I have to compare, let's say, two compounds, one is this one and one is this one. So we basically, where do we do the comparison of heat of hydrogenation? We take the molecules like where the same number of pi bonds are there. There majorly we do the comparison. So basically, whenever we have to compare the heat of hydrogenation, the molecule will have same structure, but the difference of the position of the double bond would be different. Number of double bonds are gonna remain same. Generally, in those cases, we compare heat of hydrogenation. So if somebody asks us among these two, which has the higher heat of hydrogenation, we will look for the stability of the molecule, and stability of the molecule will be looked upon by the stability of alkene, or where the double bond is placed. So if you talk about the second structure, We will see which double bond is more alkylated. The more alkylated one will be more stable. The more stable alkene will have lesser heat of hydrogenation. So this is less alkylated alkene. Hence, the heat of hydrogenation in the second will be greater than the first one. That's how we calculate when we have to just simply calculate the heat of hydrogenation on the basis of the crowding of a double bond. Now, if I have an example like this, let's say I have an example like this, where I have a double bond here, and then I have two double bonds here, and then I have three double bonds here. So basically I have taken three different molecules with three different number of double bonds. So here we cannot just simply apply the formula of heat of hydrogenation or the stability, because all these three have the three different numbers of you can say all the three molecules have different number of double bonds. So we cannot just look at the stability of alkene and can say which one has greater heat of hydrogenation or whatsoever. So we basically what we do is we can calculate it in two ways. The heat of hydrogenation can be calculated in two ways in this case. First is order of heat of hydrogenation per double bond on the per double bond basis. So basically you will see that each double bond or one single double bond, how stable it is. So we basically check the stability of the molecule. So here you have double bond over here, and then look at these double bonds. So these double bonds are resonance stabilized. This double bond has whatever crowding is there. The double bonds here, what we have the resonance, not the extended resonance or the whole molecule resonance, but at least this part has the resonance, and this molecule is completely is basically resonance stabilized. Hence, if we have to check the order of HOH per double bond, then what we will do, we will say that the first one is least stable, then second one, then third one. So our heat of hydrogenation will be maximum for first one, then second one, and then third one, because it is inversely proportional to the stability. Now, if we have to calculate the overall order of heat of hydrogenation, we need the experimental values. We cannot just go by per double bond. We have to actually, when we talk about the whole molecule stability, we need the heat of hydrogenation exact values, the values like this, like what we have calculated in the previous case. That so if we are breaking a double bond, one double bond will release 28.5 kilocalories of energy on hydrogenation. So that way we need the experimental values to give the total order of heat of hydrogenation. Otherwise, if we have to calculate the heat of hydrogenation per double bond, we will just go by stability order. We will check which one is more stable due to what reason, and we can arrange it. If I have to calculate the order of heat of hydrogenation in total, not per double bond, then we have to follow the experimental values. Experimental values means the actual heat of hydrogenation values. So let me explain you what I'm talking about. So let's say if I take this molecule, these three molecules again, this is this and this and this. So if I'll calculate it with respect to the heat of hydrogenation, how we calculated earlier, so heat of hydrogenation here, delta H will be minus 28.5 kilocalories, right? Experimental values. Here there are two double bonds, so it will be delta H will be 2 into 28.5 kilocalories, which will be approximately 57 kilocalories, right? And if I talk about the third one, we have seen that this is the value. If you check how much value or how much energy it is releasing, this is releasing minus 49.5 kilocalories, though we expected it to be somewhere around 85.5 kilocalories. But this is not what the value is. This is expected value. The calculated value or the actual value or observed value is 49.5 kilocalories. So this was expected calculated value, and this is actual observed value. So the three different values we have seen, and on the basis of this, we can actually write the total order of heat of hydrogenation. So total order of heat of hydrogenation is, so according to these values, your second should have the maximum heat of hydrogenation, then comes your third, and then comes your first, because first has the least released value, then comes your third one, then comes your second one. So this is how your order of heat of hydrogenation should be. So heat of hydrogenation you will not calculate on the basis of, in these cases where you have different number of double bonds, you will not just calculate on the basis of stability by resonance and this and that. So stability will be one factor to calculate the order of heat of hydrogenation. The other factor will be your experimental values. So if the question is asked, they will clearly mention whether you have to calculate heat of hydrogenation per double bond on per double bond basis, or overall heat of hydrogenation has to be calculated. When you are calculating overall order of heat of hydrogenation, you require these values, these delta H values, and when you are just calculating it per double bond, then you will just simply go by stability of alkene and you can write the answer. Now one more thing which we want to understand is, let's say I have three molecules. One is this, another is this one, third one is this. So basically it's benzene and naphthalene and anthracene and then phenanthrene. I am writing the phenanthrene also. Very bad drawing, sorry to say. This is my phenanthrene. Okay, so here if I want to calculate the resonance energy for this benzene is, we already know it's 36 kilocalories, because here are two benzenes. We expected it to be 2 into 36, but resonance energy is lesser over here. What is the resonance energy here? Resonance energy is 61, which is less than 3 into 36. So resonance energy is lesser when the rings are fused, lesser than what is expected with respect to two benzenes, because two benzenes are fused together. It should be 2 into 36 kilocalories, but actual value is 61 kilocalories, which is lesser than the expected one. Exactly same way, the value over here is somewhere around 85 or 83 kilocalories, somewhere around 83-85 kilocalories, which is lesser than 3 into 36. Exactly same way here, the value is 91 kilocalories, which is lesser than 3 into 36 kilocalories. So what we can see over here is, when the rings are fused, when the benzene rings are fused, or when the aromatic rings are fused, the resonance energy is relatively lesser than the individual rings energy. So if you talk about individual benzene, they will have more resonance energy released as compared to the fused rings. So how can we apply this concept, or where this concept can be asked? Let's see. If I have this structure, now in this structure, if we see that, assume this is your anthracene, right? I have drawn it very poorly though. Okay, and the electrophile is attacking over here. I mean, electrophile wants to attack on this molecule. So what all different positions are there where your electrophile can attack? So this is one position, this is another position. These two positions are equivalent position. Basically, there is no difference if electrophile attacks over here, or electrophile attacks over here, or if it attacks here, or if it attacks here. These are exactly same positions. Basically, it will not change the molecule structure or the product structure. So let's mark these positions first. This is, assume this is position 1, 2, 3, 4, and then comes your 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, and then comes your 9 and 10. I'm basically marking the double bonds, that's all. Okay, so first, fourth, eighth and fifth, these positions are exactly same positions, where anywhere in any of these positions, if this electrophile will attack, will give you the exactly same product. Exactly same way, this second position, third position, seventh position and sixth position, these are equivalent positions. So basically, no matter electrophile is attacking on second, third or seventh or sixth position, the product will remain same. And then comes your third type of positions, that is ninth position and 10th position. These are equivalent positions. So we have three different set of positions where the attack of electrophile can happen and can give you a certain product. Now, where this electrophile will prefer to go and attack, though it has three different positions where it can attack, but it will prefer going to the position 9 or 10. So this is position 9 and this is position 10. My electrophile will prefer going to position 9th or 10th. Why? Let's understand. If the electrophile will go and attack on the 9th position, let's suppose, how the molecule will look like. This is how your molecule will look like. Basically, the pi bond will break heterolytically. At one particular carbon, the positive charge will come, and the other carbon, their electrophile will attach. So let me just show you how will it look like. So here it will be hydrogen. Here it will be electrophile when it has attacked on the 9th position, and there will be a plus charge. There will be a double bond here. and there will be a plus charge created on the 10th position. So ninth position, which was the position which was ninth position, has got an electrophile, and on 10th position we have got a plus charge. Now what is the benefit of this kind of arrangement? Why your electrophile has chosen this position, basically the ninth position rather than any other position? Now look, the resonance energy of this molecule, of this part of the molecule, will be 36 kilocalories because it is individual benzene, and exactly same way this benzene will have resonance energy of 36 kilocalories. So in total it will be 72 kilocalories, whereas if it would have attacked on any other position, let's suppose first position or second position or third position or fourth position or eighth position or fifth position, what you would have got? You would have got the structure like this. This is how your molecule would have looked like. Assume it would have attacked on the 8th position. This is how your molecule would have looked like. And here, this part of the molecule would have become naphthalene. Right? So this molecule would have become naphthalene. And what is the value for naphthalene? It is 61 kilocalories. The resonance energy is 61 kilocalories. So which one is more stable? Your above one is more stable because it is releasing 72 kilocalories of energy. 72 kilocalories of energy is getting lost, and hence making the system much more stable than this one, because it is losing lesser amount of energy and hence it is relatively lesser stable. So any molecule or any species which will attack on such fused rings will always attack in the inner ring. Let's say if I have a chain where multiple benzene rings are there, the electrophile will go and preferably attack the innermost ring, so that your fused system can become the isolated system. And once it will become isolated system, the resonance energy of the molecule will increase, and if the resonance energy will increase, your stability will also increase. Resonance energy will increase means more energy will get lost in the process of resonance, which will make the molecule much more stable. So always when you get a system of fused rings, and if the question has been asked that where the attack will happen, then it will happen on the innermost ring, in which you can break the double bond and can make the system isolated. More isolated benzenes you will have in the system, more will be the resonance energy and more stable will be your molecule. This is a very important and tricky part, and you may get such questions where they ask you where the particular electrophile will attack in so and so system. So you have to keep these things in mind. Basically the resonance energy concept, you have to keep in mind that the isolated system has better resonance energy than the fused ones, and hence it will preferably go for such an attack so that your system can become isolated, can have the isolated benzene rings, and the stability can be increased for the from the resultant product, So this is a tricky question and important one also. Keep this in your mind.